On this vote, the yeas are 53, the nays are 47, and this nomination is confirmed. Under the previous order, the motion to reconsider is considered made and laid upon the table, and the President will immediately be notified of the Senate's action.
Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson has officially been confirmed as the newest justice in the United States Supreme Court. And the video you just watched really does make history, not only because of the fact that the Supreme Court will have its first African-American woman serving as a justice, but because we had the first African-American woman who serves as vice president making that announcement. Of course, Kamala Harris presided over this Senate confirmation vote. And as she noted, the Senate voted 53-47 to confirm Judge Jackson, with 3 Republicans voting in favor of confirming her, including Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, and Mitt Romney. Cenk.
So first of all, that's fantastic news. So let's not bury the lead. She appears to be an excellent judge, well qualified, and fairly progressive, okay? So it's historic that she's the first black woman on the Supreme Court, and that's fantastic. But I would argue, more importantly, she's also the first public defender on the court. So there's gonna be a perspective on the court that did not exist before.
Not the first, my understanding is the first in several decades.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, then I apparently read that wrong. I did read that in a couple of places, but thank you for the clarification. So that's really important on the court. And why do I say more importantly? Because obviously, identity politics doesn't rule everything. It's important to have an African-American female perspective if it generally presents and represents that perspective, right? But obviously Clarence Thomas is on the Supreme Court and he doesn't represent anything near the majority African-American opinion in this country. He's in fact very, very far from it. He might be the furthest away from it. So just appointing people based on race and gender isn't gonna do the job, but that's not one of the scenarios here. That's why I wanna be super clear. She's intensely qualified, wonderful candidate, and apparently pretty progressive, and probably as progressive as you're gonna get in either a Republican or Democratic administration. So whatever other things that Biden has done wrong, and that is a very long list, this one gets to go in his pro column, positive column, forever, and that's a big deal.
It is a big deal, and I'm happy that she was confirmed. We have given credit in the past to these 3 so-called moderate Republicans, even though far often than not, they would go along with whatever Trump wanted. But let's also just note for the record that it's easy for them to vote to confirm Biden's nominee when this doesn't in any way change the balance, the ideological lack of balance that we have in the Supreme Court right now, with the conservative justices overpowering the few so-called liberal justices that stand in the court or sit in the court. So I'm excited. I'm happy about this. I'm glad. Like, can I just be honest? Axios kind of framed this as, everyone expected this to happen. No one really questioned whether she'd be confirmed. Really?
No.
Really? I questioned it, not because I think that she's in any way unqualified. As Cenk mentioned, she's certainly qualified for the job. I think she handled herself really well during those hearings. I mean, with patience that, in my opinion, is unprecedented. I don't know if I would have the patience to deal with that line of questioning.
You would not.
No, I wouldn't. I would not. I would not have gotten confirmed if I were in her shoes. But anyway, putting that aside, it's hard to fully celebrate knowing what the Supreme Court is like, the overwhelming conservative ideology that overpowers the court, and some of the incredibly important cases that the court is going to hear very, very soon. I also want to just quickly note that Justice Stephen Breyer, he's the one who said he would retire, which paved the way for Ketanji Brown Jackson to become a justice. He's gonna stick around until the court's current term ends this summer. So he is gonna be able to weigh in on on the landmark abortion case that the Supreme Court is going to hear soon that could very well reverse Roe v. Wade. We'll see how that all plays out. But yeah, it's just hard just knowing how successful the Trump administration was in confirming 3 incredibly conservative justices who are not only socially conservative, but they're also incredibly pro-corporate.
Yeah, so to your point, Anna, in the next term when she will be a sitting Supreme Court justice, they're likely going to consider an affirmative action case. So we don't know how she'll rule on that, but even if she voted in the left-wing column in favor of keeping affirmative action, there's no chance she's gonna win. It's 6-3. On the other hand, I wanna go to one of our members. We do the show with you guys, tyt.com/join to become a member. Joseph Knight wrote in, pay attention, third-party people, elections have consequences.
Yes.
And that is definitely true, because if enough people had voted for a third party, in fact, you only needed 43,000 people, and that was even smaller margin than 2016 in those critical swing states, in the 3 swing states. If they had voted for a third party instead of Biden to show the Democrats, we would have had Trump as president, and right now the Supreme Court would be 7-2, let alone the fact that democracy wouldn't exist. And by the way, we've been around long enough that I've told you when elections don't really matter, and I was massively criticized for saying that Romney and Obama weren't really that different. Now, it was not that important an election, and the mainstream media was furious. No, you have to pretend that they're very, very different. No, Romney and Obama are nearly identical, certainly on economic issues.
I mean, look, to be fair to Obama, it's not like he would ever suggest that we should cut Social Security or anything like that, like Romney would.
He did, of course.
Oh, he did, that's right, okay.
So we can go on and on about that, but I give you that as juxtaposition to Biden versus Trump. Is Biden generally terrible on domestic policy? Yes. On the other hand, he's great on foreign policy and very competent, which Trump would not have been. He actually cares about American interests and allies, which Trump would not have. And he put Judge Jackson on the Supreme Court, which certainly Trump would not have. And right now it would be 7-2, and it would be hopeless for decades on end. So that's important context. And then one last thing, as they were applauding her, the Democrats were, normally what would happen is the other side wouldn't necessarily applaud, but they're in the chamber already, they just voted, and that would be that. Give Mitt Romney credit, he stood along with the others and applauded. The other Republicans made a huge point of standing up and walking out. They're like, oh.
They're such clowns, it's unbelievable.
They're like, wow. I mean, we put a liberal black woman on the Supreme Court? This is an outrage, an outrage. We only have a 6-3 lead, right? And the 6 are monstrously right wing, an outrage. We didn't allow this non-white person to be on the court, so they walked out and protest. Oh, protest over what? She couldn't be more qualified. You know what it's about. They're disgusting.
But look, I agree with everything that you're saying, but the one thing that differentiates the right wing from the left wing in this country, and when I say left wing, I'm just broadly speaking, generally speaking, is that what we're experiencing in the Supreme Court as of today, right? Not with the confirmation of Ketanji Brown Jackson, but just the overall ideological makeup of the Supreme Court is the conclusion of a long-term, well-thought-out, well-organized project, well-funded project by the right wing. And I really want to emphasize that, because while the left engages in this ridiculous infighting where they minimize the impact of essentially helping to elect a person like Donald Trump, and they minimize the impact that would have on the Supreme Court, what do you think the right wing was up to? I mean, they were making sure that they paved the way to get as many conservative federal judges appointed and confirmed, along with changing the ideological makeup of the Supreme Court to their liking. So my point here is the left, I mean, I don't know if there's any ideology that gets more distracted by squirrels than the left does. Okay, nonstop. You know what? Apparently the left is so powerful that at this point we need to look within and start attacking our allies in Congress. I guess that's the right strategy. While again, the right wing, well organized, well funded, they carry out their strategies and it works while we're all being distracted by squirrels. It drives me crazy.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Of course I do. Although I'll add a caveat here. Historically, Democrats have been awful at getting the judges on the Supreme Court and on the federal bench overall, and that's very important. And Republicans have been great at it, which leads to the point we always make, which is that it's interesting that the Republicans are always competent on things like that, and the Democrats, otherwise known for competence in things like foreign policy, just can't find a way to get more people in the federal court system, right? More judges on there. Usually it's because, again, of the economic pressures from donors, right? And so there's not a lot of incentive to push a lot of pro-labor judges onto the federal bench. In fact, there's tons of pressure on Democrats not to do that from their donors. Now, having said all that, I said caveat because here's another situation where Biden has actually done a pretty terrific job. He's put a lot of judges on in the federal system, not just Judge Jackson onto the Supreme Court. So, I mean, as you'll see later in the program, we are not at all shy about massive criticism of Biden, but this is not that area. So I have how he's handled foreign policy and the judges as clear wins for Biden. And it's a win for the country because Judge and now Justice Jackson is going to be, it appears, terrific on the Supreme Court.
And then one final thing I want to say, because I've been a downer and I don't mean to be, because there is something that I found, like, that video of Kamala Harris, for all the problems I have with her, including how for some reason she keeps painting herself as incredibly incompetent, which drives me crazy. But nonetheless, putting that aside, that video of her announcing the confirmation of Ketanji Brown Jackson was incredible. And I didn't expect it to have the kind of impact on me that it did, but it made me feel like, wow, there in some ways there is progress in the country. It's hard to focus on it. It's hard to get excited about it when there's this like terrible right-wing onslaught at all times with Democrats being incredibly weak and refusing to fight back. But with all that said, with all that pushed aside, that video was incredible. It made me feel good for a moment, and I'm really grateful for that.
Look, it sucks that that's our history, that historically black people overall, women overall, and especially black women have not been given equal rights, have been systematically discriminated against on a massive level. I mean, the injustices against black women in this country are untold. Now, to see a black woman vice president announcing the confirmation of a black woman Supreme Court justice, that's definitely progress, and we'll take it. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.